Let us put our palms together. We respectfully invite Jiahhu Shifu to start the class. 3 half bows to Jiahhu Shifu.
1 half bow to the Buddha.
Ami Tuofu.
So let us start the class as usual with 5 minutes of meditation. Being in the present moment means that you are aware of what is happening at each present moment. When we focus on the breath, every moment the breathing changes slightly, and you notice that. Because you are focused on the breathing, and you notice the momentary changes. This practice is both a training of concentration and clarity of mind. Okay, let us put our palms together and recite the sutra opening gatha. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Okay, in the sutra opening verse, it says, the Dharma, the teaching from the Buddha, is rare to encounter. And we have a chance to study it, to understand it, and to follow it, meaning to practice it. May we fully realize the Tathagata, the Buddha. The Tathagata is another name for the Buddha. May we fully understand the original meaning from the Buddha. So the main focus, a core of the Buddha's teaching, the Dharma, is just to simply understand things as they are, including ourselves. Now, Buddha understands everything truthfully. Just like scientists wants to understand the world, Buddha teaches to understand the world by understanding ourselves first. So the direction of investigation is a little bit different. Instead of investigating the physical world, we turn the focus onto ourselves. And what we call what we call ourselves, there's the body and there's the mind. And again, the focus will be on the mind. Even though we do practice to understand the body by, for example, focusing on the breathing and whole body awareness meditation and so on, still the focus is on the mind. And the Tathagata means to understand things just as they are. So we want to understand our mind just as it is. And the Heart Sutra, which we taught a couple of years ago, is one such text. And this Hundred Dharma is another such text. Okay, but it takes quite a different approach. So last time we began with the Mind Kings, the first class, the consciousness. Now, it's not enough to understand the consciousness by themselves. We have to understand how the consciousness work with the different mental states, the different mental factors, and that's the second class, the 51 mental factors. So last week we started with the first group. There are 6 groups. The 51 are divided into 6 groups. The first group are called the universal factors. The universal factors. So they are, do you remember what they are without looking at the notes? The first one is attention. The second one is contact. The third is feeling. The fourth is conception. And the fifth is volition. So we only had time to cover up to the fourth one, which is conception. All the 5 mental factors are really important, especially, well, actually, the last 3 are really important. Feeling, conception, and volition. So let's look at volition now. So we talked about why they are universally active. So these 5 factors are present in every single one of our experiences, including right now, right? Including when we were meditating. First one is attention. The number 2 is contact, feeling, conception. Okay. So very quickly, attention is, as you understand it, attention directs directs our mind to look at, to focus on whatever the attention points to. Okay? So right now, you are focused on Shifu's speaking. What am I going to say? Contact is when our sense organs and our sixth consciousness is in contact with its object of interest. So if you're looking at the screen, at your screen, then your eyes is in contact with the screen. Yeah. So you see the notes. Now, don't worry if you cannot see the notes clearly, or well, hopefully you can see. Let's see. So you can make it bigger. All right, better. So don't worry about reading the notes. Yeah, uh, uh, you can just focus on what Shifu is saying. So more important is the sixth consciousness in contact with my voice, my speech. That is more important, right? So you listen and you understand, you uh, cognize, you recognize what Shifu is saying. That's more important when we're listening to the lecture. So the fifth of the five factors is called volition. Volition is a term that is used in Buddhist world when translating to English. Now, the nature of volition is that of making the mind work. And its activities that of bending the mind toward and so on. When it grasps the characteristics of an object that causes good and so on, it urges the mind to create good. All right, so this is a technical phrasing of what it is. Basically, what it means is that volition is the mental factor, the mental state that causes you to act. Cause you to act next in the next moment. Okay, so in this moment, you decide what you're going to do next moment. Whether it's thinking, whether it's to speak, whether it's to do something with your body. So you smell the tea, you say, oh, I like to have some tea. So the nose consciousness was activated and attention was on the tea. Right, so through the eyes and the smell, you see the tea right there. So the next moment, you decide to pour some tea into the teacup and bring the tea to your mouth. That action, what makes the mind to make that decision and then to act on it. That's the volition. Okay, so volition is the agent, the mental factor agent that make us create karma, right? So refresh. What is karma? What is karma? Karma is simply the action. Now, there are three types of karma: mental, or physiological, or psychological, mental, and verbal, and physical. Okay. So let me do something too. Okay. So in English, the term karma has come to take on a lot of meaning, right? Um, and so when we talk about karma, we are not referring to just the action itself. It's a loaded word. It means the Buddhist understanding of action, which means that action has impact, has consequences. So the consequences of your action is part of the concept of karma now. So when we talked about karma, it means that we want to be concerned, we want to understand, we want to be concerned with its consequences, whether it's good or bad, both for other people and for ourselves. So what goes around comes around, right? Because it's the law of causality, the principle of causality, cause and effect. When we create good karma, consequences come back to us as blessings, some sort of blessing or fortune, something good. And when we create bad karma, when we hurt others, the consequences that eventually come back to us is something bad as well. Okay? The treatise on karma formation is a Yogacara text. Explains that there are three types of volition. So volition is actually a quite complicated mental factor. There are three types of volition. One is called deliberative volition, and that is the part of volition that deliberates, that examine and consider an object or situation in order to reach a resolution. So when we see a site, when we see something, we scan what is in front of us. A lot of times we need to quickly make a decision on what we want to focus on and ignore the rest. Yeah. When you are looking at the tea, you're ignoring everything else on the table uh, and what's beyond the table, right? So it's a deliberate action to focus on the tea. Now, decisive volition. And then you decide what's going to happen next, what you're going to do next. Following deliberation, determining whether to act or refrain from acting. A decision to not act is also a decision, right? It's also a decisive volition. Okay, I'm not going to have the tea now. I'm going to have the tea now. That is a decisive volition. Active volition, then, is once the decision is made, the mental decision is made, this is what triggers physical movements, whether it's speech or hands or your legs. You decide, okay, I've been sitting in front of the computer for an hour. I need to get up and take a break. I need to move my arms and legs. I need to go out and breathe some air. So you decide. It turns into a physical action. So that's the active volition. So mentally you decide, I'm going to stand up now. I'm going to sit here and listen. I'm going to sit here, listen to Shifu in this lecture instead of going to the fridge and look for something to eat. But that is a decision to remain sitting here or not, or do something, like stand up to drink some tea, right? So that's the deliberate, decisive, and active part of the volition. Okay, so we probably mentioned last time that feeling and conception are extremely important part in this volition. What triggers the volition? What triggers the will to act in a certain way? Often, most of the time, depend on feeling and conception. So why do you decide you want to drink the tea, or you want to go take a piece of chocolate? That is because your idea of chocolate or tea and your feeling you get when you last time before when when you eat some chocolate, when you drink some tea, your feeling, you remember the feeling, right? So the feeling and the conception, the idea you have toward tea. Some people love tea, some people love coffee, some people love just water, some people love soda, right? So that previous idea and feeling together is what help the volition decide what to do. Okay. And so how we treat people, how we think about people, how we interact, how do we react when somebody is not being friendly, when somebody is being critical, when somebody is acting out of your expectation. How do you react to that? When you're faced with challenge, uh, your feeling and conception triggers the volition and make you say something or not say something. So recently, one of the followers was telling Shifu, uh, after learning Buddhism for this year, after these years, she began to examine. Uh, there's this, usually there's a person in your life that really push your button, right? So really make you easily get emotional. So that person, uh, she said, continues to make the same mistake at work. So as a boss, as a manager, uh, she she quickly gets triggered by this person, even though she's very nice to most other people. So now she begin to reflect when that person triggers your emotional response. She stops and reflect. Do I really want to say what I'm about to say out of habit? Or am I going to uh, stop, change, to adopt a different reaction? See, so adding that part, that the reflection, means that you begin to change your concept of the situation. And you notice the feeling is still the same. You still don't feel good about it. You feel upset about it, right? Why do you keep making the same mistake? So that feeling is still the same, but then if you want things to change, you have to change beginning with the conception that how you perceive the situation. Yeah. So if you want your diet to work, you have to change your conception of your favorite food that's not doing you good, right? You have to change that conception, the idea toward the cake, the pastry, right? Or the ice cream. You need to change your idea about that. So alaya consciousness, the eighth one, uh, is only associated with these five mental factors. So we can think of the sixth consciousness as the operating system of a computer handling user interface. So um, the external environment is the situation we run into in our life. Uh, Interpreting these interactions and then presenting results, right? So we are in a situation and we think about it, through our sixth consciousness, and then we interpret it to, wait, this is a friendly situation, this is a threatening situation, this is a situation I like, this is a situation I want to walk away from, right? And our sixth consciousness decide how we like or dislike, or how we going, how we read this situation. So it's presenting the results. Or you want to solve a problem, you want to resolve an issue. Your sixth consciousness help you to draw upon past learning, past knowledge, past experience, and then you come to some sort of plan, right? So the I/O drivers that connect to the cam and the microphone. So your computer, or your phone has a camera, right? And it has a microphone that listens to your command, right, listen to your voice. So these are the low level connections to the CPU. The I/O drivers that connect to the cam will resemble the first five consciousness, your sense organs, right? So your camera and your microphone are the sense organs for your computer, for your phone. Then the eighth is like the compiled machine code that's constantly talking to the CPU and hardware devices without the user ever noticing. That's kind of geeky, right? Basically, it's the low-level processing, the low-level automatic processing. Once the computer reads, whether you type or you talk, so the operating system take care of that, handle it, interpret it, and then send it to the eighth. So eighth records everything. The alaya records everything in the very low level. In a very low level. You don't notice it, you don't know how it works, but it works constantly. So in this analogy, what is the seventh consciousness? So that's a question for you. Does the computer, as an analogy of us, does it have a self? Okay. So we can apply this. This is kind of a little bit subtle. Uh, the alaya consciousness is not our sixth consciousness, right? So right now you're interacting with Shifu or with each other, mainly through the five senses and the sixth consciousness. So the seventh and the eighth are the seventh is kind of like the subconscious idea of the self. Okay. And then the eighth is like the lowest level processing. So in the computer is the zeros and ones through the chips, the circuit through the circuit, and then that's the low level processing. Okay. So the alliance attention is a very low level subtle drive for karma seeds to be in contact with conditions that may activate the seeds. Remember, the eighth has all the karma seeds, meaning all our past experiences. Now, our past experiences are going to have impact into the present or the future. But so which event, which past situation is going to unfold and have an impact right now? In our terminology, that's the karma seed. Which karma seed gets sprout, gets to develop, and have a fruit, have a consequence, right? So that's a very low level attention to keep to generate the drive, the volition, to make the karma seeds be alert when the right situation is there. The contact keeps the karma seed warehouse connected to the organism of this lifetime. So the karma seed is not a physical thing. It's not like somewhere in our body there are little tiny seeds or tiny little, molecules. That's the karma seed. No, it's not physical. But then it's connected to this body, and to these sense organs, to the brain, connected to the brain. Because in this lifetime we have to use this body as to generate the sixth consciousness, the senses, feed into our sixth. So when we die, this connection gets broken. The karma warehouse, our individual karma warehouse, the connection to this body gets severed. It seeks to find another body. Well, actually, the more correct way is that the karma seeds transform into a new body. And it holds on, makes that connection with that body, the fetus. And number two, provides conditions for karma seed development. So that's what happens right now. Right now, we say, okay, what are the five universals and why they are important? The feeling, conception, and the volition. We're beginning to understand the mechanism of a thought. We're beginning to understand how our thought process. That's what we're doing, right? So when we learn this, when we learn about the five universals and the five specifics and the wholesome dharmas and the unwholesome dharmas, we are planting seeds. We're planting dharma seeds into our eighth warehouse. Instead of, for example, planting TikTok seeds, right? Planting YouTube seeds, or planting whatever seeds. We're planting dharma seeds into our subconscious. So the feeling, so the eighth consciousness also has feeling, but it's not the kind of feeling we are familiar with. We're familiar with happiness and sadness, and then feeling warm and feeling cold and so on. But that's That's a coarse level, associated with the sixth consciousness. But the low level feeling is a very low level, always neutral feeling. So the the alaya only has neutral feelings. It can't only have neutral feelings because if it has uh, unpleasant feelings, it's going to reject the pleasant seeds. If it has pleasant feelings, it's going to reject the unpleasant seeds. But it doesn't. It takes everything. Pleasant, unpleasant experiences, it takes everything. So its feeling about all these things are neutral. It doesn't have any strong feelings, resentment or liking to any experience. It's neutral to all experiences. So that's why it can take in everything, all experiences. So its conception is the eighth grasping of its objects, the karma seeds and the mind body, which is two level for words and labels. So, its conception is a very, very, very low level. We can say subconscious idea of looking at its karma seeds, its idea of karma seeds. So the eighth doesn't understand the truth. Okay, eight consciousness, our conscious doesn't understand the truth. That's why we have to learn the Dharma. The eighth look at karma seeds as karma seeds. It doesn't understand the true nature of karma seeds. It doesn't understand its true nature, right? So that's why we say that our consciousness is diluted, both in above the water. So what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and below the water, right? In the subconscious level. All right, so let's have a quick silent review on the definition of five universally active factors. So let's close our eyes. What are the five? Contact, attention. Those are pretty straightforward. Nothing too deep there. Attention, contact. Feeling. Now, this feeling includes all sorts of feelings and emotions, right? Feeling. So we always have feelings in every experience. A lot of times our feelings are neutral, so they don't draw any attention to us. But when the feeling is not neutral, it's pleasant or unpleasant, then our attention gets alerted, right? So for example, right now, you're sitting here listening, the feeling is mostly neutral. Until you hear something, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Shifu, I like this. This is great. So there's a pleasant feeling. Or maybe Sue will say something that you don't like. What are you talking about? Always talking about past life and the future life. I don't always talk about it, but right now we kind of talk about it. So you may have unpleasant feeling, right? So feeling, conception. Conception is a core part of our experiences, how we perceive the world. And then the sixth consciousness, using all the mental factors to paint over our experiences, to paint over our direct experiences. So in our direct experiencing of the breathing or the whole body or eating something, touching something, there's a direct experience, and then our senses doesn't do much except to bring the data. The first five bring the data, and the sixth consciousness decide how I feel about this and what I am experiencing. What I am experiencing, that's the conception, that labels everything. Give a tag, give all kinds of tags to the situation. So the sixth consciousness is the painter of your life. It paints the picture that you think is your life and the world. So when you change your conception, you change your experience. You change your view of life or people. So because of the feeling and conception that quickly triggers the mind to act in a certain way. So if you see somebody you don't like coming into your field of vision, your immediate feeling and conception is drawn up the sixth consciousness. The sixth consciousness draw up your feeling and conception, your idea about this person, and your bad feeling toward this person, and that make you act. Maybe you frown. Maybe you frown. Maybe you have a micro expression. Uh, Maybe you decide to walk and turn away, walk out of the room as soon as that person walk in. So that's the volition. That the physical action is triggered by, is brought to action by volition, the decision to act, right? Okay, so that's what happens at this level. All right, now we're going to look at the next group of mental factors, the five specific uh, dharmas, are desire, resolve, mindfulness, samadhi, and discernment. Okay, so these are really interesting. Let's look at them. The specific dharmas are so named because they are mental activities that arise only with specific objects. For example, desire, wishes for pleasing objects, the object of desire. So not necessarily a physical object. It could be a physical object, could be your conception, your idea of the physical object, right? Actually, it's always your idea of the physical object. It's never the real object itself. When you desire some donuts, the object of your desire is your conception, your idea of donut. Right? So somebody look at donuts, oh, great food. I want some now. That's your conception. It's a very pleasing thing. It's a spokesman for your tongue. But that conception is not a spokesman for the rest of your body, right? So somebody else who is more health conscious looks at the the donut, and the conception that's drawn up is fat, sugar, uh, greasy, fried in oil, right? That's the kind of conception, the perception that it has about this donut. So very different conceptions of what a donut is to you. So both types of people have opposite reactions. But the donut is the donut, Objectively, the donut is what it is. It's always been what it is. So desire, wish for pleasing objects, and therefore arise only when something inducing such a wish is present. So the 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 conditions, something in last week we used the example of walking on the street, you're passing these stores, and suddenly there's a chocolate store, and that your tension is drawn up, right? Oh, that's the object of my desire. So in that case, desire is in the front, in the forefront now, drawn by your sixth consciousness. So your sixth consciousness draw up this desire mental factor in that situation. If you're not interested in chocolate, you walk past, no desire. Your sixth consciousness is working. So sixth consciousness is your regular mind, right? Your regular mind is working. But then when you sees the chocolate, there's no desire. You just walk right past it. Right? So it's specific. Unlike feeling, conception, volition is always there. So when you see when chocolates, the window dressing, right, is in your field of vision, you're not interested. There's attention is not given to it, right? So attention contact is the same, but the conception and the feeling are different. So desire is not present. Your volition is nothing interesting. I keep walking, keep walking. That's a volition. Like the five universal mental activities, these five are also present a lot of the time. They're present in wholesome and unwholesome and neutral mental states. In other words, when you are having wholesome thoughts, these five specifics may be present. When you're having unwholesome thoughts, these five specifics may be present too. So they're powerful. They're powerful in this karma creation, right? They are in all conscious cognitive states spanning across the triple realm. What that means is in the human realm. In humans, they are there. As humans, we have these five specifics. All humans do. But in the animal realm, right? In the animal realm, the fish, the dog, the cat, the mosquito, they all have these five mental states too. And by other realms, like the heavenly beings, the hell beings, and so on and so on. Unlike the universal mental activities, these five are not present all the time and not each associated with all eight kinds of consciousness. So the universals are associated with all eight consciousness, but these are not. We're not going to, we don't need to examine them right now. So we talk about the seventh consciousness, and we mentioned quickly that the seventh consciousness are associated with these four mental factors: ignorance about the self, view of self, self-conceit, and self-love. These five mental factors. Okay. Of these, the false view of self, the view of self is a false view. It's a type of discernment. So remember the five specifics: desire, resolve, concentration or samadhi, discernment. Discernment. Discernment is when we decide, uh, usually correctly, but sometimes incorrectly, we decide what this is. Is the crucial discernment is the crucial thing for understanding a subject, for understanding what people say, for understanding when we're studying, for understanding a situation. That's discernment, right? We make right discernment, we make wrong discernment as well. So here in this case, it's a wrong discernment. It's oh, Alaya is my God, is me. This is me. That's who I am, right? In the low level sense. So that is an example of discernment. It's erroneous. But the other four specifics uh, are not associated with the seventh. Okay, let's look at desire. Desire. So desire is obviously a very important mental factor for Buddhism, right? Yogacara or any other school, any Buddhist school, any Buddhist teaching, desire is always a very important topic. In fact, when you, in many English introduction to Buddhism, they talk about the Four Noble Truths. There's suffering, there's the cause of suffering, which is desire. There's the ending of suffering, which is nirvana, and there's a path, the Eightfold Path to the ending of suffering. So often in Western, simple, quick introduction to Buddhism, desire is the cause of suffering, which is not wrong, but it's too simplified. It's too simplified. So desire has taken on a bad, uh, what's the word? When we think about desire in Buddhism, usually it's negatively associated. Oh, that's a terrible thing. Buddhism doesn't like desires. But that's actually, we need to know that there are two kinds of desire. Well, two sides to desire. Desire has the nature of wishing for a pleasing object. Its activities are supporting effort. That is, it acts as a motivation for further efforts. So effort here refers to other mental activities that continues. So once you have a desire, your mind's gonna keep going, right? Your mind's gonna keep going and generate all kinds of different mental factors. So it supports that. Desire, you can think of it as the motivation, the drive, helps with the drive. It works with volition to keep your drive to work on something. So desire can be wholesome or unwholesome. All right. So when we think negatively of desire, it's because it's often associated with unwholesome mental factors like uh, greed, like anger. When we don't get what we want, we get angry, uh, and we become blind to logical reasoning. When you see the donut or see the beautiful pastry, the blueberry muffin, then your logical thinking, your rationality goes out the window, and your feeling drives your desire, uh, and then the volition, decide to buy this and eat this right now. Now, because it does associate with wholesome factors, right? The desire to stay in the class, to understand what the 100 Dharmas are talking about, that's a desire. And that's a great desire. It's a wholesome, good desire. Helps our Dharma learning. It helps gaining wisdom about, gaining understanding about ourselves, how our mind works. And it can help change our life. So that's a wholesome desire. The wish for enlightenment can become the driving force for our liberation. So the wish for enlightenment, the Bodhi mind, to generate the Bodhi mind, that is also a desire. It's the greatest desire. The greatest desire is the desire to become a Buddha and the desire to liberate all living beings, all sentient beings. That is the greatest desire ever in Buddhism. The uh, uh, most important desire. So when we say bring forth the Bodhi mind, generate the Bodhi mind, the desire for become a Buddha, the wish to become a Buddha, make a vow to become a Buddha, to go on this path, that is also desire. That's the most wholesome desire. So that wholesome desire is going to drive us to continue to study and practice and meditate. Or your desire to complete college and get a degree, your desire to improve your work, the quality of your work, your desire to to accept criticism from other people. Is that, okay, I'm going to improve myself, but then often other people see my faults more clearly than myself. So I want to change myself. I want to, starting from today, I want to listen to all criticisms and then use my discernment to uh, judge whether to accept this criticism and then follow the advice or to reject that criticism. It is desire and discernment working together. And that action that you take, when somebody is being critical of you, your volition comes in, your desire, uh, your anger, or your wish to become better, your conception of the situation, uh, leading to the discernment that I should sit here, be quiet, and listen with a little smile. That your discernment is, this is actually good for me. whether what he says is true or not. This is good for me to listen and um, accept the situation. That's a discernment. Or your discernment may be this person is no good. I don't like him. I'm gonna yell back at him. All right. So that's a discernment too. So that's something we want to say about desire. Remember, it can be wholesome desire. So wholesome desire is what we want at this point. Or put it this way, replace unwholesome desires with wholesome desires. So to pursue the five objects of desire, the five objects desire are form, sound, smell, taste, or touch. In other words, when we see, there are things we like. When we hear, there are the sounds or speech that we like. Yeah. And when we smell, there's the smells that we really want. And there's taste, a certain taste that we pursue. And touch, certain kinds of touch, how certain things feel, what fabric of your clothing or somebody's touching that creates desire in you. So these are what most ordinary people pursue in their lives. They pursue their object of desire through the five senses. But if we pursue that, that is a pursuit of physical pleasure, then it can lead to degradation of the quality of your life, and it can lead to creation of bad karma. So it's not that all desires are bad. Even, when you say, okay, I love this food, I'm gonna have it a little bit once in a while, that's okay. You don't have to cut up everything unwholesome. But then you do want to know which unwholesome desires is wrecking your life, is doing a lot of damage to your life. Which unwholesome desires are doing a lot of damage in your life. Some other unwholesome desires could be very tiny, small, you can ignore for now, but focus on what is causing the most damage or great damage, right? Okay, the next factor is resolve or determination. What is it? The nature of resolve is to make a definite decision on an issue or situation, or certain an object beyond doubt. And its activity is that of not allowing the decision to be changed or doubted, at least for the time being. Okay. For example, you're seeing a cup and are certain that this is my cup, not my brother's cup. So open the pantry and there's all kinds of different cups. You're certain this is my cup, this is the one I want to pick up, right? To pick it up is volition. But before that happens, you have to ascertain this is the cup you want. This is the cup you're looking for. So the resolve is, okay, you scan these cups, this is my cup. But that's a simple example. We resolve a situation all the time, a lot of times. Some are inconsequential, like picking up the cup. Some are quite consequential. Okay. So again, the resolve, when you resolve on something, when you ascertain something, that may be right, that may be incorrect. It could be correct, it could be incorrect. In a situation where one is unable to ascertain or decide, then resolve, this mental factor is absent. So there are situations where you don't know what you're saying, but you don't know what you're seeing. Uh, you don't know what you're seeing. You don't know what this thing is. Okay, so there's no resolve there. For example, you go to the grocery store, you want to pick up some vegetables, and then you see, oh, you see spinach, you see broccoli, you see carrots, great stuff, and you see this veggie, you don't know what it is. Is this is this, it's not spinach, it's not kale. What is this thing? You don't know. You're uncertain. Then there's no. And then you look at the tag, the labels. Oh, so that's what it is. Then there's resolve. Okay, so resolve is determination of something. Uh, how is this different from the decisive volition that we just talked about? Yeah. If you possess resolve but lack decisive volition and active volition, you may believe in the principle. So you say, okay, I believe that the Buddha Dharma is good for me. You have that resolve. Yes, that is good for me. But then there's no decisive and active volition. That means I'm not gonna study Buddhism. I'm not gonna take the class. I'm not gonna watch Shifu's YouTube videos. I'm not gonna do the exercise. So there's no action toward this resolve, right? So you decide, yeah, it's good for me. I know exercise is good for me, but still I don't exercise. But that's a resolve without volition. If you have active volition but lack correct resolve, you may act blindly and impulsively. This may become reckless action. So you're driving on the freeway, you see a car in front of you, you want to pass it. You know, some people driving habits are like that. As long as there's a car in front of me, I have a impulse, I have a desire to pass it. So there's no correct result there. That is, okay, what's the situation? Is this a good idea to pass the car right now? It's gonna get me in trouble. It's gonna get me into a dangerous, it's gonna endanger me or endanger that person. That resolve, that discernment and resolve is not there. Discernment is trying to decide, right? Assess the situation. And resolve is when you come to a resolution. You discern something, you look at the veggie, you try to discern what it is, but you don't know what it is. It's not in your familiar list of category of vegetables, right? So there's a discernment, but there's no resolution. So when you're driving on the freeway and out of past habitual reaction, you want to pass that car no matter what. There's no discernment there. Discernment is not involved. Resolution is not involved. Uh, Resolution of whether it's safe to do this is not involved. Resolution of whether this is a good idea or not is not involved. The desire to pass him is directly drives your volition. So it becomes a reckless action. So resolve involves a conviction in one's understanding, recognition or determination so that it's not easily changed. It's not easily changed. So this is a cute little situation that actually happened, right? Many years ago, one disciple, uh, Shifu is doing some teaching in a classroom, uh, and then there was a plate of fruit. So one disciple, uh, a couple of disciples were talking about what this fruit is. It's actually apricot, but the disciple is not familiar with apricot. So she said, "This is plum." So the other person is questioning, is this a real plum? It doesn't look like a plum. So there, you see, in that situation, there's discernment and there's a resolution. So for the first disciple, the discernment is that what is this fruit? And then the resolution is that this is a plum. And the other person, there's discernment too, but there's no resolution, right? I'm not sure what this is. And then when the first person say this is a plum, that person has doubt. Doubt is another mental factor, right? The person has doubt. Are you sure? Because he compares with his own memory of what plum looks like. So in any case, there's a conviction in one's understanding. In the case of the first disciple, the conviction is that this is definitely a plum. And the other person says, no, I'm not so sure this is a plum. So recognition, determination is not easily changed. So the first person insists that this is a plum. It's not easily changed. Whereas in the volition stage, the mind may decide that I'm not sure what I'm seeing, so I'm gonna wait and see what happens. So the second disciple, the volition, decides to make that person say, I'm not sure what this is a plum. Are you sure? That's the volition. That's the action. So in this case, volition is there, but firm resolve is absent. So this, reminds us to think about our actions. What kind of actions do you do without thinking, without a careful discernment and resolution? You know what you're doing. Do you know what you're doing? A lot of times we take our actions without knowing what we're doing. We're doing it because other people are doing it. We follow what other people do. So when we follow what other people do, we see, we do a little bit of thinking, right? Or maybe no thinking, and then volition. But there's no discernment. There's no discernment with the situation. Why do people do this? Yeah. So when I first came to United States, when I was no, when I first came to the Bay Area as a monk, a one of the disciples took me to the San Francisco Pier, right? So we sat down at a store. She offered the disciple offered something for me. So the ordered a banana ice cream boat. So that first time I seen something like that, and I was shocked because the banana ice cream boat uh, it's a long banana sliced in half and 3 scoops of ice cream. You never eat 3 scoops of ice cream in Taiwan at the same time, right? As a kid, you're lucky if you get a spoonful, right? And then when you're really lucky, you get a scoop. But the scoop is about this big. In Taiwan, a scoop of ice cream is about this big. At least when I was growing up. In America, a scoop of ice cream is this big. It's this big. That's 1 scoop. So 1 scoop is not the same size. And there's 3 scoops. And plus all these colorful sprinkle chocolate chips and whatever, everything on it. It's how can a person eat that much sugar and how that much ice cream in one sitting? So what? So a lot of Asians when they come here, they adopt the eating habit of this culture. Some are good, some are not good. Without thinking about it, there's no discernment. Okay, mindfulness. So this is really, really crucial mental factor in Buddhism, right? Mindfulness, one of the 5 specifics. So what is mindfulness actually? What is mindfulness? Memory? It's related to memory. If you are mindful, then you remember it. You are more likely to remember this in the future. If you're not mindful, then you don't remember in the future. You don't recollect it. So mindfulness is associated with memory. It's not the same as memory, but it's definitely associated, has that memory quality in there. Its nature is that of causing mind to record clearly and not forget an object that has been experienced. Okay? So in the situation earlier, when a person takes apricot to be a plum, I still remember that clearly. I still recall that clearly, but I don't remember what I taught in that class. I don't remember what I taught in the class, what the subject was, but I remember that incident because when the second person doubted the first person, I'm not sure this is a plum. The first person said, this is definitely a plum because Shifu says it's a plum. She was saying that I earlier called it a plum, which I didn't. I don't know why she say that, but that's why I remember. And fortunately, I was there when she said that. I said, no, 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 this is an apricot. This is definitely a plum. I did not say that this is a plum. So that's why I still remember that. So to record clearly, the mind to record clearly and not forget an object that's been experienced. This, again, the object is the object of your mindfulness, the object of your experience, right? It could be a mental object. And its activity side of supporting samadhi, the next one, concentration, supporting samadhi. So mindfulness supports samadhi. So if you know the Eightfold Path, right view, right understanding, right thought, right thinking process, right speech, right action, right livelihood, uh, right effort, right mindfulness, and right samadhi. Right mindfulness precedes right samadhi. So in our meditation, that mindfulness is crucial. If you're not mindful, there's no samadhi, there's no concentration. Its activity, meaning its influence, what consequence it's gonna cause. It's supporting samadhi because it steadily holds and experiences the object and prevents its loss, thus inducing samadhi. Okay, so we'll look at that later. So when we meditate, for example, when we focus on the breath, it's not enough that at this moment you know what is happening in your breathing. You're breathing in, you're breathing out, you notice the momentary changes. You notice the momentary changes that's happening right now. That's good. That's great. But that's not enough. You need to have mindfulness, uh, meaning that you record this clearly and not forget. You record clearly. So it to be mindful means that your mind needs to be very sharp and clear. The mind is clear, not cloudy, not fuzzy, not dizzy, not half asleep, not drowsy. Right? These are all opposite of mindfulness. So when we experience something, we experience it with mindfulness. So when you brush your teeth in the morning and before you go to bed, you brush your teeth. Were you mindful? Most people were not mindful. It's just going through the motions. Oh, and then a couple of minutes later, okay, it's gone. It's done. So you can practice mindfulness of brushing your teeth. You record, you mentally you record clearly what's happening. So you are aware of the angle of your brush and the pressure, the right pressure you want to put onto your gum and the teeth, right? And then are you doing the front and the back and the in between? Are you getting to the crevice and so on? So tea ceremony was developed in Chinese monasteries about 1500 years ago to practice this Zen in a Zen monastery, in a Chan monastery, to practice, to turn daily activity into a mindfulness practice. The whole idea of tea ceremony is not about first you do this, and second you do that, and then third you do that. You got to do it with absolute precision. That's not that's not the crucial part about tea ceremony. The crucial part about tea ceremony is to mindfully experience the drinking of tea as a practice of applying mindfulness to simple daily activities. Okay? So if a recent experience is not remembered clearly, the mindfulness was missing. For example, forgetting where your phone is. So when you put down the phone because you were doing something else, you were not mindful of that which you did. Your focus was something else. You put your phone down because you need to do something else. So your focus was there. Your attention was there. Your attention was there. So your hand knows to put down the phone so that you can have a hand to have to do whatever you're doing. But then you don't remember where you put your phone because the mindfulness was not there. So mindfulness is closely related to recollection and memories. Mindfulness can be just a clear, unbiased recollection of past teaching or experiences. But mindfulness is also the clear, unattached experiencing of present events. So right now, at this moment, if you're really mindful, when the class is over in about 30 minutes, you will remember most of what we said. If you were not mindful during these couple hours, you would have already forgotten. As soon as, so say, see you next time. All right. Finally it's over. And you don't remember much of what Shifu actually said. So that means there was no mindfulness or little mindfulness there, right? If you are mindful, you can remember most of the points in the talk, not just my talk, anybody's talk, right? Any speech. So when I was in grad school, uh, in grad school is when I really got interested in Buddhism. So I learned about mindfulness. So I said, okay, I'm going to practice mindfulness. So I walked into a class that I didn't sign up for. It's a subject that I didn't know about. I walked into the class, uh, and it's an hour and a half class. I purposely sat there without taking any notes. So just sit there, listening, really, really focus on what the professor was saying. And then after the hour and a half class, in my mind, I can remember all the important points. Of course, I was young at the time. But the point is, this can be trained, whether you are young and old. This is mindfulness or sustained mindfulness. A quick way to define what meditation is sustained mindfulness. When you can maintain that mindfulness through a period of time, like 20, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, then that is a form of meditation. It's easier to practice when you're sitting down. That's why we do sitting meditation. But then you can practice mindfulness or a moving meditation when we're doing the walking meditation, right? That is a meditation because you're sustaining your mindfulness with each step. The mindfulness at each step, right? That's walking meditation. So by the same token, You can practice mindfulness when you're brushing your teeth, when you're folding, when you're making your bed, when you're washing the veggies and preparing for a meal, when you're talking to people, when you're listening to people. Mindfulness could be applied to everything that you do. And the right application of mindfulness, the correct application of mindfulness is not making you more intense, more tense and nervous and stressed. Oh, Shifu say we need to practice mindfulness every time, all the time. That gets me stressed. That would be wrong. Because supposedly the more mindful you are, the more calm you are, right? Okay? This is important. Just because you're supposed to practice mindfulness, you know, every day as much as possible, doesn't mean you get whole gung-ho, uptight about it and get yourself stressed out. That is not, it's the opposite of mindfulness, right? So the more mindful you are, the more calm and sharp at the same time. Isn't that great? Isn't that desirable? Isn't that how you want your life to be more of? You know, you want your life to be more of calmness, yet the mind is sharp. Now you're calm, you're peaceful inside, but your mind is sharp. That's mindfulness. So I didn't put it in here. I should. Yeah. So Shifu talked about the qualities of mindfulness. One, you're in the present moment. You're in the present. And two, uh, you're being objective. When you're very biased, even though your mind could be very clear, but you're clearly biased, then that's not mindfulness either. Okay, or it would be called the wrong mindfulness, the wrong type of mindfulness. Okay, so unbiased. Uh, and third, calm. So unbiased means objective, right? So in the present, you are objective, you're unbiased, your mind is calm. You should not, I mean, if you think you're practicing mindfulness and get stressed out about it, then that is not the right way to practice mindfulness. When you practice mindfulness the right way, your mind is calm or gets calmer. When you apply mindfulness, your mind gets calmer and calmer. Yeah, let's say you're very stressed out about something or you're anxious about something. So meditation can help, mindfulness can help. So when you're really stressed, forget everything, just sit down and observe the breath mindfully. So your mind is in the present, you're aware of the air going in and out, right? In the present, you're being objective, but it's easy to be objective when you breathe, when you focus on the breathing. So that's why we use breathing. It's easy to be objective, right? If you're sitting here going over your political views, it's very hard to be objective. So you sit here and focus on the breath, right? Objective, present, and the fourth thing is doing what you should be doing what you have decided you want to do, right? So you should be focusing on the breath. There is focus. There's focus. Yeah. And there's clarity of mind. You're aware of what's the air going in and out. When you do this for 5 minutes, your mind becomes calm. So calmness is not a prerequisite of mindfulness, but it's actually what happens when you continue to be mindful. That's what happens. You become calm and more peaceful inside. So right mindfulness. So the Eightfold Path, it is the right mindfulness. If there's Right mindfulness, that means there's not right mindfulness, right? If you're very mindful about how to break into a house and steal the thing and get without getting caught, that will be the wrong mindfulness. So right mindfulness here means the following. Oh yeah, actually I did talk about it. Present mind, calmness, objectivity, focusing on what you should be focused at this moment, and crucially with the right view, with the right understanding, the first of the Eightfold Paths, right? So a person could be mentally studying how to make a bomb and blow up a building, but that person has false views, unwholesome views, or deluded views. So here's the right view is what makes right mindfulness. So when we talk about mindfulness in the context of Chan practice or meditation, Buddhist meditation, we usually referring to right mindfulness by default. Okay, right mindfulness. That means you need to include the right view or the right understanding of something. So the reason we're doing meditation is that it can bring us to enlightenment, the understanding of reality as it is, the tathagata, right? The tathata, the suchness, the tathata, the suchness. And that can benefit myself and can benefit people around me and even people who don't know me, right? So that mindfulness, that meditation is useful. That's why I'm practicing mindfulness. That's why I'm practicing meditation. If I'm practicing meditation, hoping to gain some supernatural powers, so I can take advantage of people, that will be the right wrong mindfulness. So the right view is important. View is a discernment. When we say right view, right understanding, that's a discernment and often with resolution, right? Resolve and discernment. All right, samadhi. What is samadhi? Its nature is that of causing mind to be absorbed in your attention on a contemplated object and not become distracted. Its activity is that of supporting wise discernment. So discernment is the next one, right? Wise discernment or insight. Samadhi is also translated as concentration or meditative absorb. So samadhi is a concept that was not in Chinese language, Chinese culture. It was not in the English or Western culture, at least not so familiar to the general population. Okay. So that's why we don't translate it. I don't want to translate it. Sometimes if we have to, we translate it as concentration, right? But it's a very it usually refers to a deep level of concentration, meditative absorption. So translators have created this phrase, this term called meditative absorption, right? I didn't like it at first, but now I'm getting, my resolve is that this is actually a good term. So made it you're totally absorbed. There's an absorption. You're 100% absorbed. But here, as one of the five specific, the samadhi here is not very high level samadhi. It's pretty low level, meaning basically concentration. So there's certain degree of concentration. So the samadhi here used here, it could refer to very high level meditative absorption, or it can refer to what we usually talk about as concentration. So when you focus on a study, when you focus on playing piano, when you focus on listening to others, there's concentration, there's samadhi. When a person is talking to you and you're looking at your phone, so, you're looking at your phone and back and forth, then there's hearing, right? But there's no mindfulness and there's no concentration. So that becomes a cause for misunderstanding. So while most people have experience with concentration, there are more profound levels of meditative states or samadhi states. In general, can only be achieved through dedicated meditation practice. So when Shifu used samadhi, I'm referring to that more profound state of concentration, that meditative concentration. Okay. So in this case, right now we're talking about the 5 specific mental factors. The samadhi could usually refer to lower level concentration as well. So concentration, it is an important mental factor, right? If you want to do well, and if you do anything with concentration, then it's good. You will learn faster and better and remember it better, right? If you do it without concentration, you could be wasting a lot of time, wasting your time, wasting the teacher's time or other people's time. And so you do without efficiency, without it's very low quality work when there's no concentration. So concentration is something very important in our life. It's crucial in Buddhism. But many people, modern people, many people, they don't understand the importance of concentration. In this TikTok age, your attention, it's every a couple seconds, every few seconds. It began with Twitter, right? Twitter sort of um, uh, made it really popular, this idea of very short messages. So our attention span becomes shorter. We cannot focus on one thing, and then we always want a new tweet, and then it becomes the video version of that becomes TikTok, right? So it's getting to a point where Silver has to make these short clips now. So a quality of concentration is not easily deterred by distractions. So when you focus on listening, yeah, so in the previous weeks, there were a lot of frogs making noises while I was teaching. So I'm focusing on the teaching, so I know the frogs are there, but it didn't really bother me. Today there's no frogs. They gone somewhere else. So the point is that even if there were frogs or noises, traffic noises, it doesn't bother you. You don't get distracted. You're able to stay focused. That's a state of concentration. So that, of course, is important in our Buddhist practice as well as our daily work, right? All right. Finally, the sermon. Its nature is discriminating an object that is being inspected. Its activity is that of the eliminating doubt because discernment seeks certainty when inspecting something that's meritorious, unworthy, both or neither. So, in other words, uh, discernment help you decide whether this is worth your effort, worth your interest, uh, whether you want this or not. That's discernment. Now, discernment is the process before resolve, right? We have ascertained through discernment, then there's a resolve. And when you have a resolve, You may decide I'm going to act on it, and that's volition. With discernment comes understanding of a situation or subject. That's what leads to understanding. Correct discernment can lead to true insight or wisdom, or at least correct knowledge, right? While misguided discernment leads to misunderstanding and delusion. Okay, so to give a everyday example. So you walk into your office space and you see two people talking, and as soon as they see you, they stop talking. Why are they doing that? Why do they stop talking when they see me? Oh, it must be because they're talking behind my back. So that's discernment and resolve, right? You discern and you come to the conclusion that they're talking behind my back. So that would be an example of incorrect discernment if they were actually, it was just a coincidence. If the conversation was not related to you at all, they have no wish to talk behind your back, but then you misunderstand. So the discernment can also lead to a lot of issues. A lot of times when couples fight with each other, there's incorrect discernment. You didn't understand the other person's action. You didn't interpret the other person's action correctly. So that's discernment there too. The discernment is the culprit in these misunderstandings. Now, of course, the most important misdiscernment or misguided discernment is the view of self. It's incorrect discernment on the part of the manas as well as the sixth consciousness. Okay, so see, everything we talked about so far bring us back to how we practice, well, how we do our Buddhist practice, how we can understand the problems our habitual mind, uh, how our habitual mind acts, and then turn that around, so we can avoid misjudging people, misjudging ourselves. We have the right discernment, better understanding of ourselves. That involves discernment, right? So discernment used correctly is wisdom. Discernment used incorrectly is delusion, foolishness, or false view. Okay, right understanding, the first of the Eightfold Path, is the most important type of correct discernment. So Eightfold Path begins with right understanding. Right understanding is a result of discernment. What discernment? The right discernment about the nature of the self. So clearly understanding that sentient beings are devoid of self and dharmas are devoid of self. That's the beginning line in the 100 Dharmas, right? That would be the most crucial right understanding. When you have that understanding, that is called awakening. So what is the difference between discernment and volition? Yeah. A discernment is characterized by selection and the severance of doubt. So discernment has the function of cutting off doubt, removing doubt. So doubt is not a mental factor that we'll talk about later. Doubt could be a healthy doubt. When you see a situation that's fishy, when you receive a message, say, uh, great news, you just won the lottery. You just won $1 million. You only need to pay $1,000 to get it. You get suspicious. Yeah. So the doubt could be a healthy doubt. It could be an unhealthy doubt, irrational doubt, right? Buddhism, bogus. I don't want to hear about it. It's a superstition that doubt is unfounded, irrational doubt. So discernment is what removes doubt. Includes investigation, analysis. Its essence lies in reaching a certain and clear understanding of the object of situation. So volition is universal. It's characterized by causing the mind to engage in action, creating karma, as a function of harnessing the mind towards karma. In other words, it brings out karma. It drives the process of deliberative volition. During this deliberation, one might employ discernment. So remember volition, this deliberation part. The deliberation part calls out discernment. So it's the volition that calls discernment into action. So volition, you have a will. I want to understand this. I want to understand the situation. I want to understand the subject. So that volition calls discernment. And keep the discernment going. That's deliberate volition. Keep the discernment going until you have a resolve. When you have a resolve, you can have a decisive volition. Okay, now I understand this. Here is my decision. I'm going to do A, B, and C. That's active volition. So this is how mind works. But deliberative volition may give rise to desire and resolve, subsequently leading to decisive volition. So when you see a donut, volition doesn't call up discernment. It calls up desire. It calls up desire. And the reason it calls up desire is feeling pop in. If you really like donuts, when you see it, feeling come up. When you don't care about donuts, feeling doesn't, it's a neutral feeling. It's a neutral feeling. But for people who love donuts, it's a pleasant feeling, a strong, pleasant feeling. Immediately jump in, and that feeling draws up desire. And the deliberative volition, is should I buy one or should I buy a dozen? That's a deliberative volition. But so the discernment is, do I have money? Should I spend the money to buy one or have a dozen? It's not about whether you should or not, whether the discernment was whether you can afford it or not. So that leads to a decisive volition. I'm going to have a dozen. And that leads to action, paying to get it. And the next experience will be opening the box in your car before you even get home and you start eating three of them. So you see, there's a lot of volition, a lot of desire, a lot of feeling, no concentration, no discernment, no correct resolve. The resolve was eat another one. So these specific factors may be triggered, may not be triggered. Discernment may be, the right discernment may be there, may not be there. So when you passively attending a lecture, when you have no desire, okay, I'm attending Shifu's 100 Dharma because I should, but the desire is not strong. Okay, or my friend invited me to attend, so I don't really care so much. There's no desire. Then there may not be uh, concentration, samadhi, concentration, a lot of discernment. You're just going through the motion, actively contemplating the meaning, right? So when we contemplate on something, Shifu say ABC, right? Absorb, no, acquire by listening. Absorb is to contemplate on it, to make you to achieve an inner understanding. Okay, that's discernment. That's discernment driven by volition to understand. So when someone give you homework and say, contemplate on the situation and use the five universal and five specific mental factors, see how they function in this situation uh, as an exercise. Then your desire is, okay, I want to do this exercise with diligence. I really want to, I know this exercise is good for me. I really want to do it. So that desire lead to volition. The volition sustains the discernment. Sustain the discernment. Okay, I want to think about this. Let me think. when reaching for a donut, when reaching for a carrot, when I reach, you know, when I decide to do this or not do, when I decide to do a meditation, if only for 5 minutes, is a discernment, resolve, volition, and maybe leading to concentration, because when you meditate, you have concentration. This is how we go about having our experiences. When this mindfulness and discernment is not often caught up, not present, then we become a creature of habit. We just do the same things. We react in the same way. When things happen, when people criticize you, react in the same way. You're driven by your feelings, not by right discernment, not by mindfulness. There's no mindfulness there. When you react, just, you just keep on talking and talking and talking without stopping or reflecting on what you're saying. So we say is when when your sixth consciousness is on autopilot mode. So the whole purpose of Buddhist practice then, or at least, in this context, is to stop the autopilot mode. When we stop and reflect, we call into the right desire, to improve ourselves, to understand our life, to have peace of mind, right? So that's a wholesome desire. And then we need to follow that with volition, the drive, the motivation, sustain it. Every day I'm going to do something. If for half an hour every day I'm going to meditate, I'm going to listen to Shifu's teaching, I'm going to think about it, right? So that's volition. So volition calls up desire, calls up discernment, calls up mindfulness, calls up um, calls up the other associated mental factors to make this happen. That's how you begin to change your life. All right, so okay, so this is the 5 specifics. Introduction to the 5 specifics. Let us look at the exercises for the 5 universals and the 5 um, specifics. Now, when Shifu was giving these examples, right, whether about meditation, whether about donuts, about facing criticism, and so on, we are by default talking about the sixth consciousness, right? The sixth consciousness commands all these mental factors together. So again, there are 3 parts to our exercise. One is thinking and internalizing the teaching. B is meditative practice. And C is daily application. So we got about 10 minutes, okay. Observing the mental factors. When you are reading, your mind is directed toward the book, that's attention. The eyes and the words on the page meet, that's contact. Eye consciousness and sixth consciousness arise together. They co-arise, right? Feelings are generated. For example, if the lighting is too bright for you to read comfortably, too dark so you can't see it, or the words are large enough or too small, right? When the feelings may be pleasant or unpleasant, if you're studying a subject you're interested in, even though it may be difficult, the feeling is pleasant. When you are studying a subject, when you're forced to study some subject that you're not interested in, then it may be easy, but the feeling is unpleasant. The words make an imprint in the mind. So that's in conception. From words to concept. From words to concept, that's conception. That's the universal. As one performs the reading, the volition, you gotta keep reading for 20 minutes. The book is interesting and one continues to read the desire to, oh, maybe not 20 minutes too short. I want to read another chapter. With concentration, Yeah. The words are recognized and ideas considered as conception, mindfulness, discernment are all involved here. And one decides to follow the lessons learned from the book, resolve, and bring up volition. So that's an example of using reading to integrate what we learn in these 2-3 weeks. Now try a few examples of your own and see how the mental activities come into play in each action. How these different mental factors, right? For example, eating sweets, drinking tea, driving fast, talking, meditating, sleeping, listening to a lecture, share your observations. And why do we want to do this? It's because we want to remember one key. If I do this without mindfulness, if I do this with mindfulness, what's going to happen? Okay, the universal audit, reflecting on the definition of the 5 universal active factors, attention, and so on, why must these 5 be present even in the 8th conscious? Okay, so why these 5 are always present in every experience? Cognitive versus resolve. Cognition versus resolve. Consider the difference between discernment and resolve. How does firmly asserting an object differ from simply understanding it? So resolve, you have decided that this is what it is. Is there understanding or no understanding? A lot of people come to a resolution, come to a certain something without right understanding. For example, when you watch on social platform, when you see a post about some person doing something, you emotionally react to it. That means you have resolved. You believe in that post, what that post say about that person, without true understanding, without thinking about, does this make sense? Is this actually what happened? Is this that person's interpretation? Is that actually what the person is about like? See, that requires discernment and understanding. But a lot of people react or easily believe what they see and read or hear so that's a resolve. There's a resolve, but there's no discernment. There's no mindful discernment. That's what happens. That's what leads to a lot of problems in this world or in our lives. So many people act in certain ways with resolve and volition without discernment, without wisdom. So can you recall a time you had clear discernment but lacked resolve? So in both cases, do you remember your past experience? We have resolve without discernment. Do you remember experience? We have discernment but without resolve. The driving force. Analyze the role of desires as a specific factor. Given that desires can be wholesome or unwholesome, how does it serve as a primary motivation to further effort in your life, whether it's effort that will make you happy or effort that will make you unhappy? Yeah, when I was after I graduated from college, there was I had a job. I was working as a computer software engineer. In those days, we just call it programmer. I was a programmer. But no. Now we call it software engineer. All right, so I was a software engineer, and my uh, coworker in the same office. Sometimes she'll tell me about her relationships. So she's a very intelligent woman. She was a PhD candidate at UCLA, and then she was attracted to this muscle, good-looking guys. But often the person she was attracted to had not very bright. But she's very bright. So after a while, the relationship break up. And then she'll tell me a few months later, she'll tell me about the second relationship. It's the same thing. And then the third relationship is the same type. She always fall for the same type. So how does your volition serve as your primary motivation for further effort in your life? Do we repeat something that hurt us over and over again? When we do things that hurt us, for example, you yell at your kid every time he or she does something, and the kid gets upset and you get upset, but the same thing happens. The behavior doesn't change. You keep behaving the same way, and you react in the same way. You continue to yell at the kid, and then your relationship worsens. So something has to change, right? Don't expect the other person to change. The change comes from yourself. So should you change your reaction? If you want to change your reaction, how? That requires discernment, right? So you reflect, my way of reacting to this situation obviously is not effective in changing my kid's behavior. Then I must react in a different way. How? Use discernment. You think about it to produce a result closer to what you want, right? All right, Buddhist meditation practice. Isolating the universal five. Sit in silence for 10 minutes and choose a single sensory object like sound of a fan or sound of your heater. Observe attention, alerting the mind. Notice the contact between the ear, the sound, and the consciousness. Identify the immediate feeling. So when you're meditating and there's some noise, you become aware of it. Is that a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling? The goal is neutral, right? The goal is neutral feeling so that you can develop a concentration. But often the feeling was unpleasant. So then if it's unpleasant, what do? You change your conception. Your conception is, why is this noise every time I meditate? That's your conception. That leads to being annoyed. But if your conception is, it's okay, I can concentrate without being distracted by this noise. I can do it. I can develop my concentration. When your conception is that is the right discernment. Observe the volition as it bends the mind to continue listening or shift focus. Okay. Samadhi and discernment. So concentration and discernment. Practice 10 minutes of breath meditation. When the mind becomes absorbed in attention, is no longer easily distracted, acknowledge this as concentration. Low level, at least a level of concentration. From this focused state, apply discernment to inspect the impermanence of the breath, seeking certainty in its rising and falling. So the idea is when we practice mindfulness of the breath, the first stage is simply to stay focused and not get distracted. But there's more. If you can achieve this, then the next stage is to observe with more clarity of mind, with more mindfulness, so they can notice characteristics about breathing. You notice the fleeting, the impermanence of every moment of breathing. So that leads to deeper insights. That's the idea. Concentration and discernment lead to deeper insights. All right, daily application. Oh, I run out of time. So you can read this yourself, or we can do this at the beginning of next class. Okay, so this daily application, it'd be good to apply what we learn to our everyday life. Okay, so there was actually there was a question from last week. What happens to the sixth and the seventh consciousness when the brain suffers illness such as dementia or stroke and lost the ability to comprehend? With such damages done to the physical body, all right? Do seeds still get planted by the alaya? So that's a deep question. When a person is having signs of dementia, what is happening? So remember the sixth consciousness, it can arise by itself. And one of the self-arising uh, consciousness, sixth consciousness is demented or diluted, a dementia consciousness. Okay, so yes, the sixth and the seventh still work. The seventh is not affected. The seventh just hold on to this low level idea of the self. So the seventh is not affected. The sixth is definitely affected because it's normal functioning, right? The normal discernment and so on. The other 51 factors, a lot of them is not functioning anymore. Okay, but it's still acting. Dementia is still a function of the sixth consciousness. So with such damages, do seeds still get planted in alaya as usual? Okay, so here's the thing. When do you plant new seeds? Or when are you suffering or experiencing the consequences of old seed? When something happens without you calling for it, it's not a result of your action, but it just happens, then that is usually the result or consequence of past karma seeds. You're not necessarily planting new seeds if you just take it, accept it, and let it go. But if you react strongly, then you're planting new seeds. So when things happen to you, for example, when you lose your job, when your kid yell at you, when your boss yells at you, when your boss just for some reason just don't like you, it may be your past karma between you and your boss, not what you did in this life. But how you react to it can create new karma or not. Okay, we'll talk about it later. So the alaya consciousness, the seeds will new seeds be created? It's very hard to say. We need to examine specific situations. Okay, so that's it. Um, Let us take a couple minutes to reflect. Okay, I used up my time, so feel free to leave. Sorry, press the wrong button. Okay, so let me just take one question. If there's one question from the group, you can write in the chat room or you can talk. Oh, okay, so here's a question. Hey Google, find my phone. Can you actually do that? Tell Google to find your phone. That's a joke, right? Okay. So how can we tell we are improving our samadhi? I guess it is a little paradoxical to examine our level of samadhi while in samadhi. No, it's not paradoxical actually. So when you're in concentration and you reflect on your level of concentration, that's actually the best way to do it. Okay? So that means when you're meditating, let's say I'm meditating and focusing on my breath, and at some point you take a break. You take a break from focusing on your breath and you reflect on the past 10 minutes. So in the past 10 minutes, was I focused on the breath or did my mind wander off somewhere? And how often did my mind wander off? Do you remember? Because it just happened, right? The 10 minutes just happened. So even if you were unmindful, you could still remember a little bit more about it, right? So you reflect on it. In fact, that's a specific practice that Shifu advocated to do a recall of your meditation session. Let's begin with 5 minutes or 10 minutes. All right. So you do a 5-minute or 10-minute meditation and you stop and you recall what happened in that 10 minutes. That will help you understand your level of concentration, whether you are highly focused or whether you are not. If you don't remember what happened in that minutes or 10 minutes, then obviously there was no mindfulness and little concentration. But that's okay. You know your current state and you take steps to improve it by doing some training. Okay. So what kind of training? We can talk about it next time. All right. How can I practice mindfulness during a heated debate with someone? If it's a heated debate, if you are in heat, then there's no mindfulness, right? So you want to have a desire to remain mindful in a debate. You want to tell yourself when you're calm, like right now, you're calm, you tell yourself, I want to bring up mindfulness. Next time I'm arguing with that person, right? So you drill this in your mind, drill this into your sixth, seventh, eighth consciousness, so that when you're actually in the debate, that karma seed can pop up because you planted the karma seed, right? You planted the karma seed that when I'm having the argument, I want to have mindfulness. So you may remember. Remember, in the middle of in the argument, you may remember, wait, I'm supposed to be mindful. That actually can work, okay? That actually works. That's how karma seeds work. Right now you're calm and you keep telling yourself, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to remember to do this when I'm in that situation. This is called the thought practice. You know, athletes do that all the time. Professional athletes do that. When they think about a situation, they practice in their mind and how they're going to kick or how they're going to throw the ball. They do this hundreds of thousands of times in their mind. So you do this in your mind. Next time, you can envision the arguments. Okay, I'm in the argument situation. I'm going to stop and not say what I wanted to say, but listen. I want to listen without getting triggered. I want to listen and accept, try to find out what he says that I can agree with and stop on that point, right? So you in an argument, you obviously have disagreement, but here's the approach. Calm down and find something that he says that you can agree with and start there. Say, oh, I agree with you. That's a good point. Thank you. You start with that. And that's how you can turn the nature of the conversation around. Okay, so let us stop and take a minute to reflect on what we have learned today. We completed the 5 universals and the 5 specifics, and it's interesting how they work together. Interesting how they work together, and especially the bringing in mindfulness and the mindfulness and concentration and discernment, the golden triangle, mindfulness, discernment, concentration, the golden triangle, that's gonna change your life. Okay, so we make a dedication. We dedicate the merits, the good karma, the merits from the good karma of studying the Dharma together today to all the participants and all the future participants and all sentient beings in the world. May everyone have good health. May everyone remember to put your mindfulness, concentration, and discernment to work so you can improve your life, improve your relationships, and achieve enlightenment. We also dedicate the merits to peace in the world. Okay, one more little thing. Next week, we're gonna unleash our AI tutor for the class using a little device. So we'll tell you about it next week. Okay, so see you next week.
Palms together. We thank Jiahhu Shifu with 3 half bows.
1 half bow to the Buddha.
阿弥陀佛。
Okay, see you all next time.